Adam and Eve, where did Cain get his wife? The Bible tells us that Adam and Eve had what? Cain and Abel and who else? Seth. And the Bible also tells us Adam was the first man, 1 Corinthians 15:45, that Eve was given that name because she was to be the mother of all the living, right? In other words, the Bible makes it clear there was one man and one woman to start with. And if you got one man and one woman, even in Acts 17 verse 26, Paul says God made of one blood all nations of men for to dwell on the face of the earth. We're all related. So we all go back to Adam and Eve. But then Genesis 5:4 says Adam had sons and what? Daughters. So originally brothers must have married who? Sisters. Now people say, wait a minute. You know, even the Bible says brothers can't marry sisters. Not till the time of Moses in Leviticus. You see, Abraham was married to his half-sister, and that wasn't a problem, was it? Not at all. Originally, brothers must have married sisters. People have the idea, oh, when you get married, you're not allowed to marry a relative. If you don't marry a relative, you don't marry a human. Then you've got a whole different problem, right? It's just today, it's best not to marry a close relative. And you know why? See, the Bible helps us understand this, and genetics helps fill in some details for us. Adam and Eve, when they were created, were perfect. But when they sinned, now everything's running down. God doesn't hold everything together perfectly anymore. He withdrew some of that sustaining power so things would run down, so we would die because we forfeited our right to live. And so because of that, over time, mutations, changes in our genes occur. And what happens is this. Over time, each generation gets new mistakes and they get added to the next generation and they accumulate and get new mistakes. And so after 6,000 years, we have an incredible accumulation of mistakes. Now here's the problem today. Because we have so many mistakes in our genes, if brother and sister were to marry today, then it's more likely that you'll inherit the same mistakes from your parents. And if sperm fertilizes egg and those mistakes get together, there's an increased likelihood of deformities in the offspring, which is why it's better to marry someone further away in relationship from you. So where you have a good gene and they have got a bad gene, you know, the good gene will override the bad gene. Now, here's the thing. The further back you go in history, the fewer mistakes that there would be. Adam and Eve had no mistakes. Their children had relatively few. Close relations could marry. Originally, it wasn't a problem, provided it was one man for one woman. And that's what marriage is all about. Actually, a brother and sister getting married originally is no different to a man and woman getting married today because you're marrying your relative. It's just today you don't marry a close relative. Very easy to understand. Isn't it exciting when we get those answers? And then one other thing, people say, okay, but then how do you get all the different races of people? Some people think that, oh, to get all the so-called races of people, God must have made different races to start with. Wait a minute. We're all descendants of one man and one woman. The gospel message is for every tribe and nation because we're all of one race, because we're all descendants of Adam, we're all sinners, and Jesus Christ became a member of the human race to die for the descendants of Adam. There can only be one race of people.
I hear this one a lot. How can there be so many races in the world if we are all descendants of Adam and Eve? Well, check this out. First off, let's talk about the word race. Sometimes when people use the word, they mean supposed races of people who have evolved at different times, rates, and in different locations. That's not true. Of course, the word race is also a term we use to distinguish between groups with different physical traits, namely skin color. But are there really different races? Take a gander at Acts 17:26, where it is written that God, from one man, made every nation of men. It's clear then that the Bible teaches that there is one race, the human race. The Bible is also clear that all people on the earth are descendants of Adam and Eve who were created by God. Check Genesis 1:26 through 28. Easy enough. God created two people in his image, male and female, and told them to increase in number. So Adam and Eve are mom and dad of the human race. Then their children had children, and those children had children, and so on and so forth for many generations until, according to Genesis 6:9, the world's population was reduced to 8 people who were protected inside an ark during a global flood. And those 8 people later walked off the ark, and according to Genesis 9:19, from them came the people who were scattered over the earth. Oh, wait a second. What do I mean scattered? Well, jump over to Genesis 11 and let's talk about an event known as the Tower of Babel. Basically, because of the sinful actions of the descendants of Noah, the Lord confused their language and scattered them from there over all the earth. That's pretty clear and concise. Okay, so we've got lots of people who are descendants of the 8 folks who came off the ark, and now they have been scattered all over the earth. That explains that we are still one race and that different groups of people ended up in different locations. But how do we get a bunch of different colored people if we are all one race? Well, follow along. This, of course, is a simplified explanation, but the basic principles are true. We all have a pigment in our bodies called melanin, which, depending on different variables, produces different shades of the one main skin color we all possess. Several genes control the amount of melanin produced and thus the variability in the skin shade. In fact, it's easy for one couple to produce a wide range of skin shade variability in just one generation, as we'll see in just a moment. Time for a quick genetics lesson. DNA is the molecule of heredity that is passed from parents to children. A child inherits 23 chromosomes from each parent. Each chromosome pair contains hundreds of genes, which regulate the physical development of the child. However, to illustrate basic genetic principles pertaining to the topic, we'll just talk about two genes, the genes that control the production of melanin. So, let capital A and capital B symbolize versions of the gene that code for large amounts of melanin, while little a and little b code for small amounts. Got it? Easy. Check this out. Take a look at the upper left. Let's say dad contributes capital A, capital B genes, and mom contributes capital A, capital B genes as well. Together, they will produce a child with capital A, capital B, and capital B. This is a kid with a lot of melanin, and thus he will have very dark skin. Easy to see. Here's the bigger point, though. Let's say dad contributes capital A, capital B, and mom contributes little a and little b. Well, the child's skin will be middle brown shade, the combination of capital A, little a, and capital B, little b, which, by the way, represents a majority of the world's population. Not only that, but if each parent is capital A, capital B, little b, the combinations that could be produced in their children could result in a very wide range of skin shades in just one generation. So, since Adam and Eve were the first people ever, it makes sense to conclude that God placed in them a combination of genes that could produce all different shades of skin we see. Those same combinations would be present in Noah and the 7 other people who boarded the ark. And because God dispersed people at the Tower of Babel, he dispersed the population, thereby isolating gene pools in the different people groups. Over time, different cultures formed in different locations with certain features like skin shade becoming predominant. And here we are today. And since we all go back to Noah and his family, it makes sense that we are all different shades of brown. One race, multiple people groups, just like the Bible teaches.